Welcome to ZoomInData, your go-to channel for in-depth Azure Cloud, Serverless, and modern development interview preparation. In this video, we dive deep into the top 25 Azure Functions supported languages interview questions for 2026. Perfect for developers, architects, and anyone preparing for AZ-204 certification or choosing the right language for serverless workloads. We cover official language support, C#, JavaScript, Python, Java, PowerShell details, custom handlers, isolated worker model, runtime versions, debugging, performance differences, dependency management, async patterns, migration, extensibility, and best practices, all explained in clear, interview-ready technical language to help you confidently ace your next interview. 1. Which languages are officially supported in Azure Functions? Azure Functions officially supports C#, .NET, JavaScript/Node.js, Python, Java, PowerShell, and TypeScript via Node.js. Custom handlers allow virtually any language, Go, Rust, Ruby, PHP, etc., by implementing a simple HTTP protocol. .NET 8 Isolated Worker is the current standard for C#. V4 runtime is the baseline for all languages as of 2026. Microsoft actively maintains first-class support for C#, JavaScript, Python, Java, and PowerShell with full binding ecosystem. 2. Explain C# support in Functions. C# is the most mature language in Azure Functions with full support for both in-process and isolated worker models. In-process model, .NET 6/8, runs inside Functions host. Isolated model runs worker process separately for better isolation. Supports attribute-based bindings, dependency injection, middleware, isolated only, and full .NET ecosystem libraries. Recommended for enterprise applications needing strong typing, performance, and deep Azure integration. 3. How does JavaScript/Node.js work in Functions? JavaScript/Node.js functions run on Node.js runtime, v18, v20 supported in 2026, with full async, await support. Bindings defined in function. JSON. Code uses context. Bindings for input, output. Supports TypeScript transpilation and modern ESM syntax in recent runtimes. Ideal for web developers, rapid prototyping, and integration with Node.js ecosystem packages. 4. What is the Python support status? Python is fully supported with versions 3.8 to 3.12. 3.11 and 3.12 recommended in 2026. Runs in isolated worker model with virtual environment management via requirements.txt. Bindings defined in function. JSON. Code uses input, output via context or decorators, preview. Strong support for data science, ML libraries, NumPy, Pandas, scikit-learn, and Azure SDKs. 5. How does Java support differ from .NET? Java runs on JVM, Java 8, 11, 17, 21 supported, with Maven, Gradle project structure. Bindings defined in function. JSON. Code uses annotations, at function name, at binding name. No isolated worker model. Runs in process with Functions host. More verbose than .NET. Better suited for enterprise Java shops with existing codebases. 6. Explain PowerShell in functions. PowerShell functions run on PowerShell Core 7 Plus with full Azure PowerShell module support. Bindings defined in function. JSON. Code uses $trigger metadata and output bindings. Ideal for infrastructure automation, Azure management scripts, and Windows-centric tasks. Supports async workflows via async, await in PowerShell 7 Plus. 7. What are custom handlers? Custom handlers allow any executable language, Go, Rust, Ruby, PHP, etc., to run as Azure Functions by implementing a simple HTTP protocol. Function host forwards trigger events to custom handler via HTTP. Handler responds with execution result. Configured in host. JSON with executable path and arguments. Enables non-supported languages while retaining function scaling and monitoring. 8. How do you choose a language for functions? Choose C# for enterprise-grade apps needing strong typing, performance, and deep .NET integration. Choose JavaScript/Node.js for web developers, rapid prototyping, or Node.js ecosystem reuse. Choose Python for data science, ML, or scripting teams familiar with Python libraries. Choose Java, PowerShell for existing enterprise codebases or infrastructure automation. 9. Explain in-process versus isolated model for .NET. In-process model runs function code inside functions host process. Tight integration, smaller cold start. Isolated model runs code in separate worker process. Better isolation. Supports newer .NET versions. Isolated supports middleware, custom bindings, and full ASP.NET Core compatibility. Microsoft recommends isolated model for all new .NET 8 Plus development in 2026. 10. How do you handle language-specific bindings? C# uses attributes for bindings, and Java uses annotations for bindings. JavaScript, Python, and PowerShell use function.json declarative bindings with direction and type. All languages support the same binding ecosystem through extensions and bundles. Custom bindings require extension development for language-specific syntax. 11. What is the runtime version for each language? C# uses version 4 runtime with .NET 8 isolated worker as standard in 2026. JavaScript uses version 4 runtime with Node.js 18 and 20 support. Python uses version 4 runtime with versions 3.8 to 3.12. Java uses version 4 runtime with versions 8, 11, 17, and 21, while PowerShell uses version 7 and above. 12. Explain TypeScript support in functions. TypeScript is supported via Node.js runtime with transpilation during local development or deployment. Developers use tsconfig.json and package.json scripts for build steps in CI/CD pipelines. Bindings are defined in function.json, and code uses TypeScript types for safety. It is recommended for JavaScript developers who want type safety and modern syntax. 13. How do you debug different languages locally? C# uses Visual Studio or Visual Studio Code breakpoints with function start command. JavaScript uses Visual Studio Code debugger with launch.json configuration. Python uses Visual Studio Code Python extension with function start debugging. All languages support log stream and console output for local troubleshooting. 14. What are the performance differences between languages? C# with .NET 8 isolated model offers the best cold start and throughput for compute-intensive tasks. JavaScript provides fast startup but higher memory usage for large dependencies. Python has slower startup and higher memory footprint due to interpreter overhead. Java has moderate startup with good throughput for enterprise workloads. 15. Explain F# support. F# is supported via .NET Runtime in both in-process and isolated models with full binding compatibility. Functions written in F# use the same triggers and bindings as C#. It is ideal for functional programming style and data-heavy workloads. It is less common but fully supported with the same runtime benefits as C#. 16. How do you manage dependencies per language? C# uses NuGet packages through project files or extension bundles. JavaScript uses package.json with npm or yarn. Python uses requirements.txt and virtual environment management. Java uses Maven or Gradle configuration files. 17. What is the isolated worker for non-.NET languages? Isolated worker model is primarily for .NET but enables custom handlers for non-.NET languages. Non-.NET languages use custom handlers with HTTP protocol instead of true isolated workers. It provides process isolation and better dependency management for custom runtimes. The future roadmap may expand true isolated support beyond .NET. 18. Explain language extensibility. Language extensibility through custom handlers allows any executable language to run as functions. Developers implement HTTP protocol for trigger events and response handling. Extensions and bundles extend the binding ecosystem for new triggers. Community and Microsoft contribute new language support via custom handlers. 19. How do you migrate between languages? Migration requires rewriting function code in the target language while keeping the same triggers. You can reuse function.json for non-.NET languages or attributes for C#. Local testing should be done with the same input and output bindings before deployment. CI/CD pipelines can deploy multi-language functions in the same app. 20. What is the future language support roadmap? Microsoft focuses on .NET 8 and 9 isolated model, Node.js 20+, Python 3.12+, and Java 21. Custom handlers remain the primary path for non-supported languages. There is potential deeper support for Go and Rust through custom handler improvements. Emphasis is placed on performance and isolation across all languages in 2026 and beyond. 21. Explain Go and Rust via custom handlers. Go and Rust functions are implemented via custom handlers with an HTTP endpoint listening for trigger events. The functions host forwards trigger data, and the handler processes and returns a response. They can be deployed as containers or executables with host.json configuration. They offer high performance and memory safety for compute-intensive tasks. 22. How do you handle asynchronous operations in different languages? C# uses async and await with task return types. JavaScript uses async and await or native promises. Python uses async def and await for asynchronous operations. Java uses completable future for asynchronous execution. 23. What is the default language for new functions? The default language when creating new functions in the portal is C# with .NET 8 isolated. Visual Studio Code extension prompts for language selection during project creation. Azure CLI defaults to C# unless another language is specified. Developers can set preferred language in tools or templates. 24. How do you configure language workers? Language workers are configured using the Functions Worker Runtime app setting, such as .NET Isolated, Node, or Python. Multiple workers can be configured using Functions Worker Process Count. Custom handlers are configured in the host.json custom handler section. Worker process lifetime and restart behavior are controlled via host.json. 25. Best practices for language selection. Choose C# for enterprise applications requiring type safety and performance. Choose JavaScript and Node.js for web developers and rapid prototyping. Choose Python for data science, machine learning, or scripting teams. Use custom handlers for specialized languages but prioritize officially supported languages. Thank you for watching. If this video helped you prepare for your Azure Functions interview, please give it a thumbs up and share it with your network. Don't forget to subscribe to ZoomInData and hit the bell icon for more in-depth cloud computing, serverless, and Azure interview prep videos every week. Drop your questions or topic requests in the comments. Let's zoom in on your success together.